Time to get back to our panel. With me tonight, Dan Mitchell of the Cato Institute, Hadley Heath of the Independent Women's Forum, and Wayne Kaufman from John Thomas Financial. I want to start with a quote from the president on his campaign trail today. Here's what he had to say.
We were told that huge tax cuts, especially for the wealthiest Americans, would lead to faster job growth. We were told that fewer regulations, especially for big financial institutions and corporations, would bring about widespread prosperity. But the growth that took place during this time period turned out to be a house of cards. And in the fall of 2008, it all came tumbling down, with a financial crisis that plunged the world into the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression.
Wayne, to you, is this economy the fault of George Bush?
I think President Bush had a hand in this. There's no doubt he was a big spender. People make excuses for why he was a big spender, but he definitely was. But, you know, this is a situation where, when I said before, most people don't understand these issues. I've discussed this with many clients who come in to our firm, and a lot of people say, oh, this was Bush's fault. I ask them a simple question. Are you familiar with the Community Reinvestment Act? None of them have heard. I won't say none. Most of them have not even heard of it. So whether you agree that the housing bubble was caused by that, partly caused by that or not, the inability to discuss it means you're not really informed. So yes, I do think that Mr. Bush played a part in this, but President Obama has certainly made it far worse. And when he talks about projections or what people said would happen, all you have to do is look at his record, the things he promised 3.5 years ago. None of those have happened. He had 2 years where he had the whole Congress doing what he wanted, and everything is much worse than what he promised. And in the real world, you'd be fired for that type of performance.
Dan, your opinion.
If you look at Bush's fiscal record, he doubled the size of the federal government from $1.8 to $3.6 trillion in just 8 years. I don't blame the tax cuts at all. As a matter of fact, before the financial crisis hit, tax revenues were at their long-term historical average. So that's clearly not where the problem was, and we didn't have a single bit of deregulation during the Bush years. As a matter of fact, we had things like the Sarbanes-Oxley regulation that drove a lot of business to foreign countries. So when I complain about Obama, I complain about the very same things that we had under Bush. More spending, more regulation, more intervention, more red tape. They were both for bailouts, both for bigger government. That's our problem. We're becoming Europe.
We're becoming Europe. Well, Hadley, to you, I want you to comment on something President Bill Clinton had to say, well, 2 years ago. In an economic flashback, the Democrats are saying something like this: we found a big hole that we did not dig. We didn't get it filled in 21 months, but at least we quit digging. Give us 2 more years. If it doesn't work, vote us out. What do you say?
Wow, that's pretty strong words there. I think that's pretty clear what President Clinton is suggesting. But at this point, look, we're not getting ourselves out of a hole. We haven't even stopped digging. In terms of the federal debt, we are continuously digging, and we have tons of unfunded liabilities in a lot of these entitlement programs that need serious reform. So again, it's not the personal fault of George W. Bush or Barack Obama, but it is these policies that both of them have tended to embrace when they continuously spend more money than we have. And I totally second what Dan says about the tax cuts. It isn't about a tax problem. It's about a spending problem. And when government continues to overregulate and overspend, they're making us all poorer, and they're choking out the private sector.
Dan, to you, lots of conversation about whether Barack Obama was able to offer new ideas. Did you see any today?
I didn't see any new ideas. He still wants the class warfare tax policy, but you don't get more growth by punishing people who save and invest. He wants more government spending. He calls it stimulus, but it didn't work for Hoover and Roosevelt in the 30s. It didn't work for Japan in the 90s. It didn't work for Bush in 2008, and it's not working for him today. So unless he is willing to become a Clinton Democrat, I'm not even asking for him to become Reagan, but become a Clinton Democrat, reduce the burden of government spending, be willing to deregulate, be willing to reduce the burden of government on the productive sector of the economy. I think he's incapable of doing that because he's had zero experience with the private sector in his life.
Zero experience. Wayne, to you, foreclosures up 16% in a report today. Of course, we see that Greece is going to vote this weekend on whether it'll stay in the EU or not. Tell us your expectations of the economy here and what it will mean for the election.
Well, in terms of Greece, you know, the polls in Greece show that most people there want to stay in the Eurozone. So you know, that would be a short-term nice outcome, especially for the market. Relative to the economy is very stagnant. The last payrolls report was a disaster. They showed that we gained 135,000 or something jobs. That was a mirage. It was really, I'm sorry, it was supposed to be that. It was only about 69,000. But there's something called the birth-death adjustment. That's a government estimate of how many new businesses were created, and that was 204,000. If you take that away, we may have actually had a net loss, and that number peaks in April and May.
Wow.
So the next month or two could be very bad.
Well, guys, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Dan, Hadley, and Wayne, appreciate your help. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.